Hello everybody, this is B. Harper from supermarcy.com, and today I will be looking at Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. But before I start, thank you all so much for the positive reception for my Terminator 2 review. When I checked those Facebook likes and everything, I was gobsmacked. So whoever out there decided to share my article and thought it was actually good, thank you. Thank you so much, and it really does mean a lot to me. So on that note, now this video may not necessarily be as popular as T2 was, but that's probably because Terminator 3 also wasn't as popular as Terminator 2. It's got its flaws, and a couple of them are rather glaring, but generally speaking, for a film that was not directed by James Cameron and doesn't feature the same multitude of talent, Terminator 3 really isn't that bad. If you took away the Terminators, or rather, if you took away the previous story arcs from the first two films and just concentrated on Terminator 3, it's a more than decent action movie. For one thing, most of the action in this film is practical. It was done on the set, in the camera, and by God, it looks incredible. The crane chase involving the Terminator, John Connor, Kate Brewster, or Connor, whichever way you want to put it, and the TX it's incredible, and it still holds up even to this day. It is so well staged, looks amazing, it rackets up the tension, it's got everything you would want from a convincing car chase. And truth be told, I always get a sense of exhilaration whenever I watch it. The film was directed by Jonathan Mostow, and he's not exactly the most prolific filmmaker, but I believe he did a film known as U-53. I think that's the title thing. I'm sorry, I'm doing this at the top of my head, so please forgive me if I make any mistakes. And that movie is suitably very full of tension, it's got good actors and everything. And if you keep in mind that this film had no involvement by James Cameron, it still holds up quite well. But not to sing too many of its praises out the gate, let me just give you my thoughts on a couple of the things that not so much offended me, but that took me out of the magic of the movie. I don't have a problem with the way Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this movie. In fact, I feel he is the most watchable. And what I really do appreciate is that there is a sense of parody in this movie, but it's not to the same extent as Alien Resurrection was, and we all know how that one worked out. So to see a Terminator wear like spangly star glasses stepping out of a out of a bachelorette party, it really isn't that bad. Not when it's compared to the rest of the breakneck action in this movie, but just so. Most of the fault with Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines does lie in the story. When you think about it, the first parts of the movie, like say the first two acts, are pretty much Terminator 2. Let me list the ways. So, you have the Terminator being sent back in time, reprogrammed to protect young John Connor. You also have a superior model Terminator, emphasis on model in this case, the TX also being sent back to eliminate John Connor. So it's a whole chase all the way around. Like the bad Terminator is relentless and persistent, and the good Terminator has positive bonds with young John Connor. Like there is something to be learned between them, and they form a connection. And it also involves the idea that, you know, Skynet is still a danger. Now, this is where the most confusing part is. At the end of Terminator 2, it was a definite to say that Skynet and Cyberdyne Industries had been dropped. Therefore, Judgment Day was off the table. But in this film, rather than really go forward with the storyline progression, or rather, say, reboot, if you will, they throw in this throwaway detail that Skynet wasn't the end of it. Like, there was also a whole other sort of deal going on with it. So, I don't know, your mileage does vary, but Terminator 3 was, well, rather, before Terminator 3 came out, I was personally expecting, say, like the future war with John Connor earning his stripes and, you know, becoming the legend that he would come to be. But it's not until the third act of the movie that T3 becomes its own. And that's when I feel it is at its most strongest. So you have the fact that Judgment Day is going to go ahead, and it is unavoidable. And to give credit to this movie, the heroes fail. They try their hardest to stop Skynet from going online and becoming aware, but in the end, it's all for nothing. Well, when I say all for nothing, they can't prevent the tragedy. And may I say that last scene of John and Kate in the Fallout shelter and listening to all the emergency broadcasts, and finally John's stepping up to the plate and starting to, you know, display traits of being the leader he's going to be by, you know, instructing other people on the line and talking to them and everything like that. It really is really good. And the entire sort of fight in the Skynet complex between the TX and, you know, Arnie-nator and all the other sort of models that come into play, that's really cool too. Like, you have the aerial sky units and you have the tank units, and it's really cool to see an expansion on these things. There is no substitute for the Terminators like the bipedal variants, but it's still really cool to see all this other stuff, because this is all going to come into play into John's future. So he's having early exposure to these things that would cause him so much trouble. And truth be told, I loved seeing all this new stuff. So if you were to forego the first, you know, 2 acts of the movie and just focus on the final act, it really does stand on its own. Which somewhat brings me to the conception and the character of the TX. I'm divided here. One, it is great to see a female Terminator, and may I say, Kristanna Loken does have the physical prowess to be one. When she has that look on her face and, you know, the confident way that she moves, that is what a Terminator is. There is no, what's the word? I'm sorry, the word will come back to me. There is no wasted movement with the Terminator, and that still remains with the TX. Her physical performance is really, really superb, and I gotta give credit to Kristanna Loken for, you know, harkening back to being a mime and working on her physicality and everything. And she is really good in fight scenes, and that helps because she has commitment to the role, and the fact that she's acting, you know, against from Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you can see this battle for competition between them. It's convincing. But on the other hand, look, when we first meet the TX, she's naked. I don't have a problem with that. Trust me, I don't. But the way the film makes it out to be, first and foremost, she's somewhat fetishized. She arrives, she decks herself up in like tight pink leather, and, you know, the fact that she looks like a supermodel, I mean, hello, like, and in the veterinary clinic when John is being treated, or rather not when John is being treated, but he's stealing medication from the vet, and that's when he meets Kate Brewster, played by Claire Danes. When she samples some blood that is John's, her reaction is orgasmic, and I'm just wondering, why is she orgasming here? What's the reason? But truth be told, it's not necessarily offensive, but it's silly. But then again, there is quite a few silly moments in this movie, and I won't go through them because it may ruin your own personal perceptions. But there is a very glaring error for me personally. It is the absence of Sarah Connor. I don't have a problem with Sarah Connor not being in a movie. But in Terminator 3, it is revealed that she died of leukemia, you know, off-screen. And leukemia is a terrible, tragic thing, and we know it all happens, of course. But here's the thing. The first 2 movies had Sarah Connor being built up as a full-blooded character. She was not a cipher. She was not token. She was a whole being, thanks to Linda Hamilton's performances. And the way Terminator 3 just completely writes her off, you know, oh, she died of leukemia and blah, 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 that doesn't sit right with me. In I believe it was the first film that says that Sarah, or rather John Connor's mother, you know, went into hiding or something like that. So wouldn't have been somewhat better, and in terms of continuity, that, you know, Sarah Connor more or less went into hiding. I know, given her reinforced bond with John in T2, that, you know, she wouldn't leave him alone like that. But still, just to have her killed off screen and just have a very fleeting mention, come on, you know, we spent 2 whole movies caring about her and cheering her on and wanting her to succeed, and just to have one little mention of her death, I'm sorry, it doesn't sit well with me. And those are mostly the issues that got to me in the movie. I am all for camp, and there's some really good campy stuff in this film, like the aforementioned, you know, Arnie arriving with the glasses and everything, and, you know, the TX orgasming when she tastes John Connor's blood. No. But it's not terrible in such a way that's unwatchable. And look, there is a lot of story inconsistency with the Terminator timeline, but as it is, the Terminator timeline is a whole mishmash of things now. You have paradoxes happening, you have, you know, discrepancies in the timeline and where people are at a particular point, but what you need to do is just accept the movie at face value first and foremost. I feel that is the best way to enjoy it, and whatever thought that comes to you afterward, that's just a means of course. Oh, a little word on the acting. Acting-wise, I think everybody does a bang-up job. Nick Stahl is... I feel he's one of the most underappreciated actors in Hollywood. And I don't understand why. He's talented, like, I think he's good-looking, and quite frankly, he's able to invest himself in a role, and it's just a pity that he's still not getting as much work as he deserves. Same thing goes for Claire Danes. She actually surprised me by being so tough in this movie, but it's not done in such a forced way. Her natural strength is coming through, and in a sense, it is somewhat how, you know, Sarah Connor was. Like, to begin with, she was a very, you know, soft-spoken and meek individual, but as time goes on, and as circumstances become more dire, the beast comes through, the she-bear, and that's what Claire does, and much to her credit, she really does work. Arnold Schwarzenegger, like I said, greatest part about the movie, acting-wise, and he gets quite a few good lines in this movie, like, talk to the hand. I'm sorry, that was my Arnie impression, I apologise. And Kristanna Loken, she's great. Everybody else, yeah, they're fine. Oh, and Earl Bowen coming back as Dr. Silverman, like when he's comforting Kate Brewster at the cemetery, and he starts to relive his own experiences from the first, not the first two, rather Terminator 2, like you know, when he became a hostage by Sarah Connor, and the fact that he witnessed the T-1000 moving through the bar. You can see this. He's just breaking down as he's talking to Kate about it, and it's really, really funny. Visual effects wise, yeah, still pretty good, still holds up. There are a couple of dated approaches, but you know what, so long as you're willing to just go with it and accept it on its own terms, Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines is a perfectly entertaining movie. Is it as good as number 1 and number 2? Of course it isn't. No, what? Are you drunk? No, of course not. But just based on its individual merits and all the things it does right, it's still a legitimately good movie. Well, rather, a legitimately great action movie. Emphasis on the action. Seriously, that crane chase, holy crap. Okay, guys, so I give Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines a 3.5 out of 5. Decent score. So on that note, thank you once again for listening, and as always, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye for now.